I'd like to welcome everybody to another edition of Classic Board Rewind, where we talk about games from the past, games that are out of print, games that might be out there and have had a longer life than 10 years or this golden age that we're going through. And today we are talking about probably one of my favorite games of all time. The great, the one, the only, Blood Bowl. Now let's talk a little bit about the history of Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl is a very fascinating game. It was created by Jervis Johnson, and I believe Andy Hall. He had a hand in it as well. Now, this is a kind of a rugby type of rugby, American football type of game, and the way it's developed, it's just a beautiful, beautiful game. The first edition came out in 1986, and what it worked as was pretty much as one of Warhammer's older games. They used to use their type of rules. It wasn't until the second edition, which I believe was 1988 or 1989, that they came out with actual figures. You actually got a foam board. The board was actually foam. It wasn't this, this cardboard that you see right now. And the figures were the old style figures. Then, in 1994, they came out with actually this edition, which is the third edition. In 2000, they came out with the final edition, which was the fourth edition, which was the thin box edition. And then ever since then, anything that they've updated has been through the living rule book. So any changes that have made, they've just made the changes in the book, and they've never come out with another edition since. Finding this is hard. You can find it on eBay. The neat thing about it is that you really had a feel for this game, and the fact that it was a game that you played and you became very personal because you were the coach of this team and you controlled all the moving. It was a chess match of football, and everything ran off of dice. Your luck, pushing your luck, going further, doing certain things. You ran the risk of getting your guys completely knocked out and destroyed. It truly is one of the best games ever. They also came out with, but we're not going to cover that in this week's edition. We are going to talk about this in either next week's or the following weeks. It depends on how everything goes, especially with all the painting I'm doing for Forbidden Stars. But we're going to talk about Dead Zone, and we're going to talk about league play. And I really want to cover this in full detail. League play became very, very popular. This game has such a cult following. There's leagues for it every football season. People have developed certain teams for it. There's so many teams, and you used to be able to buy a box set of teams. Like right here, you have the Dark Elves, the Humans, the Orcs. We have the Humans and the Orcs on the pitch right now. I've got Champions of Death. I have every team, and let's see, I've got about, just looking right here, I've got close to 12 teams, 13 teams. I even made a team of halflings, which we call the New York Midgets. Yep, I did. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the game and how everything pretty much is based off of stats of each player. Now I'm going to go into it. I'm not going to play too many turns. I'm not going to play a turn of this. We're going to do that when we talk more in the Death Zone area. I'm actually going to run through an entire game and show you how the Death Zone comes about. The best thing about Death Zone, and we'll save that for later, is that it doesn't matter how many matches that your team played, it balances out. And that's the beauty of this game. You become very personal because you name each player. Each player's numbered. Each number gets, every time it knocks somebody out or scores a touchdown or kills somebody, you get experience points. You get star player points is what they're called. Now, to take a look at some of the the stats here, you have a movement stat. That's how far you move on this pitch, and it's called a pitch. A football field, that's called a pitch. Okay, it's a good mix of American football, European football, and rugby, like I said. Now each one of these squares is considered, you would use as a movement point. So if we move this way, you can move diagonally, you move back, you can move sideways. It doesn't matter. However you want to move, you can move. So 6 is your movement. Then you have a strength number. Now the strength number is very important because what we have is blocking dice. And you want to try to get as many of these as you can. So if you have a strength 3 character, like we do this human here, okay, and a strength 3 lineman, and you wanted to perform a block action. Hopefully you guys can see this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, so just be a little patient with me. Alright, there we go. And I'm just going to move this up. There we go. I was on such a roll too. So say you want to perform a blocking action. You would take one of these dice, because it's 3 on 3, that's 1 times. If this person had a strength 4, okay, and this was a strength 3, or this person had a strength 4 and this had a strength 3, you would get 2 dice. And if you did more than that, you can get up to 3 dice. Okay? And the dice are everything, because they are the end-all be-all of things. This here, if you roll this on one die, attacker falls down. And then you would roll on an injury table to see what would happen to him. There's a chance that he would get stunned. On a 2 to 7, he is stunned. An 8-9, knocked out, which means he comes out of the game. So you start the game with 11 players, and I don't have 11 on the field, but I just wanted you guys to get a feel for it. 10 is badly hurt. Take the player off the pitch and place them in the dead and injured box in the dugout. The player must miss the rest of the game. So if you don't have reserves, okay, you're going to be stuck down a guy, and people are going to start running over you and scoring points and building up their team. If you roll a 12 on a knockdown, okay, that player is dead. He is eliminated from your team for forever, unless you have a wizard, which we'll talk about that in another video. And he is gone from the game, he is gone from your team, and you're going to have to buy another team. Now each player has a gold piece value. So you would be, before you started your game, you have to be able to put 11 players on your pitch. And the way you would do that, and I'm going to show you here, is what we do is we have these really, really cool game sheets. Now these are more from the Death Zone, but we'll talk about that again later. But for the sake of just understanding the game, so when we get into it. Now, the next thing is agility. Okay? How you're able to move, how you're able to perform skill actions like catching the ball, breaking a tackle zone. If you want to move here, you're going to have to roll an agility roll. Okay? And it's a plus, it's your agility. Say you have an agility of 3, you have to roll a 4 or better on a 6-sided die. So you're putting yourself up on chance, because the minute you cause a failure, your turn is ended. And on this board, which we're going to zoom back out, whoops, we're going to zoom back out. This is your dugout area. And like I said, you have your reserves here, that once it's halftime, you can bring your reserves out. Game is constant. A first half is 8 turns. 8 turns for your opponent, 8 turns for you. Okay? Here's your knockout area. If your guys are knocked out, there's a chance they can come back into your reserve aisle or come back onto the pitch. If they're dead or injured, either they're missing the game or they have a chance to come back. If they're dead, they're just dead. Okay? You also get rerolls. Rerolls are a big help, because when you try to take a chancy move, okay, and it will happen that you have to make a decision that oh, this is a chance. I need a 5 or 6, but if I do this, I'm going to get glory. And a lot of times it's making yourself look smart and glory. And if you roll, you look like a hero. You're allowed to burn 1 re-roll, okay, per turn. Now let's go back a little bit and talk about the blocking strength, okay? Both players equal strength, 1 blocking die. 1 player stronger, 2 blocking die. 1 player more than twice as strong gets 3 dice. And that's a big deal. Now, like we said, let's talk about blocking zones real quick, and I hope you guys can see this pretty good. Because right now we've got two guys that are going to block each other. They're both equal strength at 3-3. Now say I want to take this guy that's a strength 4 guy, okay? And he moves up into the area to assist. Now does he add his strength? Does 4 and 3 become 7 and you double? No. It's his 3 plus 1 for each figure in the blocking zone. So it would be 4 versus 3. If there was another human player here, that would cancel out any assist. Even though he's stronger, it doesn't matter. This person cancels this person out in the blocking zone. And this can become quite an ordeal to figure out during the game, because the pitch really gets involved when you have a number of players all against each other. When you start knocking people back, you know, certain things happen. Now he has an assist here, even though he blocks him out. You know, you just start moving people out of the way or knocking people around. Let's talk about the blocking dice, which is an integral part. This right here is defender down. This here, if it comes up, is a pushback, which means if I rolled and I got the pushback, you get to decide anywhere this guy goes, but he pushes back 1 square. The next die, right here, which is a blocking and a skull. Both down. Both players are knocked down unless you have the block skill. The block skill will take this dice out. This here. The defender is pushed back and knocked over unless they have the dodge skill. So this is where the dodge skill comes in. And you can purchase these skills. Some of them come already part of your player. Take your catcher. He has catch and dodge. Catch gives him a +1. Dodge means when that comes up, all he does is get pushed back because he has the dodge skill. And of course, the skull, which is the worst thing for you, which is you go down. Unless you have a reroll. Now in the original game, the basic skills that you would have is block, catch, dodge, pass, and sure hands. Sure hands help you pick up a ball. It allows you to re-roll the dice if you fail to pick up the ball. In addition, the opposing player who has stripped the ball skill, well, we won't even get into that, because again, we're going to be doing a playthrough and talking about that zone, which we're going to build a team. We're going to have 2 unbalanced teams and we're going to play it through, and that may be next week or the following week, so I hope you stay with me for that. All your ball skills, your skill players, because you do have skill players, okay, that are on your team. Like this is your quarterback. You're going to want to have a quarterback. He's going to be your skill player. He's going to take the ball, and for the majority, he's going to have the pass skill. Now let's talk about the pass skill. Okay, passing is done very simply. Okay, you take this ruler. Look, it's clear, old school, and you check what zone he's in. For a quick pass, you would get +1 to your die roll. So it's an agility +1. So if you had an agility of 3, you would need a 4 +1, which means 3 or better, you would make the pass. Doesn't mean you catch the ball. That's a whole different story. So within this short zone, if I wanted to pass here to this particular player, even though he's an orc and on the other side, he would be in the quick pass zone. Short pass zone is from here to here, long pass, and then the bomb. Each one has a modifier. Short pass, you can pass up to here with no modifier. A long pass is -1, so if you have an agility of 3, you would need a 5 or 6. And then throwing a long bomb, you need a 6. Now, if somebody's in your tackle zone, that's a negative as well. So if this guy's here and you want to throw the ball, that's a negative. Nothing, no matter what, no matter how negative, it can never go higher than 6. And even with as many people in the zone, you would need a 6. So you would still have a slight chance to do such. Picking up the ball, you would roll a d6. Picking up the ball is, okay, picking up the ball, making a dodge roll is +1. Picking up the ball, you get +1, but it's -1 for a person in the area. So if you're here and the ball is on the ground and you walk into this square and you want to pick it up, if you have an agility of 3, that means a 4, it would be +1 to pick it up, 3 or better. So as long as you don't roll a 2 or 1. And let me tell you something, 1s come up are the kiss of death. 1s are always a fail no matter what. So once you throw the ball, if you're successful in throwing the ball, if an enemy is somehow in the zone here, that he has a chance for an interception. Attempting an interception is your agility -2. So if you have an agility of 3, it's -2, you need a 6 to intercept the ball. For every enemy per tackle zone on the player throwing the ball, -1. Oh, we already mentioned that. Intercepting the ball, -1. Yep, so even if your agility is super low, and there are guys with agility of 5, elves have an agility of 4. It's amazing how these teams are, and we'll talk about that in the next video, all the different teams. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a short video before we do Death Zone and our playthrough. I'm going to make a video and I'm going to lay out all the teams, and I'm going to let you guys pick out the 2 teams that we're going to play. So, scoring. If you're able to score. Now, you may have a movement of 6. And I'm going to actually slide the board so I don't have to move the camera too much. The hell with it. Alright, there we go. Alright. Okay, so we can see that now. If this particular person has the ball, and where'd the ball go? There we go. If he has the ball, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Here's the end zone. The end zone is 1 square wide. Okay? The pitch is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 squares across and quite a few squares long. I'm not going to bother to count. If you are on your turn and you are making your move and your movement is 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're just short, you can push it. Okay? You can push it twice. So that means you can push yourself twice to go a little bit further. You have to roll your agility. So in order to get in here, it would have to be 4 or better. So you would take, I'm going to push it and roll. I would fail. I would fall over. The ball would come loose, and then we would roll a scatter die. There's a template, which I did not pull out, that the ball scatters. If it goes out of bounds, it comes back in. There's another scatter template there. It can bounce all over the place until somebody has a chance to pick it up, or it lands in the final space of its choice. And we'll go over that in detail when we play our playthrough. To roll an injury, it's 2d6, like I said, 2 to 7, all the way up to 12. We've already talked about that. This is probably one of the greatest games ever made. in my mind. And it's one thing that is a very cult game. To this day, there are still homemade rules, teams that are made, lizard man teams, dwarf teams with different names. You play for the Blood Bowl. There's a whole history from Spike magazine. Yes, I have a painted Blood Bowl trophy. And we used to play every year, an entire season with playoffs to see who would hold this on their mantle until the next season. Your players can get old, and we'll talk about that in Death Zone. We have the living rule book, which the rules continually change, and they show all the teams that have been added, and they give you stats and things that you can start with. The game came with the original handbook and with these 6 teams, the 6 original teams that had came out for it. There was the Orcs, the Skaven, which were fast, movement of 7. Their runners had a movement of 9. The Dark Elves were pretty fast at 6 and 7, but their agility was at 4. The Black Orcs, movement of a couple guys. You were able to have 4 blitzers with a movement of 6, but your blockers only moved 4, but they had a strength of 4, an agility of 2, an armor of 9. Breaking your armor is the key to everything. There were 2 rolls. That's the thing that I forgot and I want to cover. When you finally knocked somebody down, if their armor was 8 and you broke their armor, say we got a 6 there, he would just be knocked down. So on the next turn you would be able to pick him up. It would cost half his movement to stand up, and you would still have 3 movement and your action. You're allowed 1 action. A throw action, a blocking action, and that's it for that particular player. Each player, 11 players in one turn, had an action apiece. So you intricately had to figure out your moves ahead of time. And we'll talk about that in detail. But say he was knocked down and we went past 8. We got a 9. We broke his armor. Then we would roll on the injury table. And of course I roll a 10. Badly hurt. He would have been taken off the pitch. But if we rolled stunned 2 to 7, all he would do is be turned over. So on the next subsequent turn that you had, he would turn over, he would still be down, he couldn't get up. So it would take 2 turns to get him back up. So you can get a player out of the way. And some of the stronger teams were made to run and just crush their lighter opponents, where other teams were high flyers. They wanted to get away from you, they didn't want to hit you. They wanted to fly down the field, throw the ball around, use their high agility to dodge and bob and weave. But if they got hit, they were decimated. Your teams, particularly, they wanted to sit there along with the dwarf teams and sit there and grind at you. And they wanted to grind you and just take and grind in time. Each team had a personality, and they still do. There's so many variances. There's Norse now. We're going to go into so much of this. This is one of my favorite all-time games. And like I said, it is a big cult following game. It is a game that people are very, very passionate about and want to see another edition from Games Workshop. Will we see it? I don't know. It'd be nice to see everything updated with newer models, and I've got so many painted models of this, it's ridiculous. These were the actual first things I've ever painted in my life, so I hold on to them. So they have a lot of meaning to them. This game actually was purchased for me in the early 90s by my wife, and God bless her. She put up with many a tournament. She had to order it from the great country of Canada to get it for me because it was hard to come by and nobody had a copy of it. To this day I have 3 copies of this, and what we do is we would hold tournaments here when I had people to play with, and we would have some great Blood Bowl tournaments. There was a variation of it, just to talk about some of the history. There was Dungeon Bowl, which you would take these rules and apply it where you would go through a dungeon and take your team, and there would be traps and treasure and all kinds of things while you were fighting for the ball, trying to get the ball out. This game's been converted over to PC, to Xbox 360. You can get it on the iOS right now. It's a great game. If you want to try it, check it out. And that's a hint, because this week on Board Game App, I'll be showing you the electronic version of Blood Bowl on the iOS system. So you get a good look at an old GW game that has a lot of meaning to me, and it means a lot. I hope you enjoyed this version of Classic Board Game Rewind. I'm trying to get better at it, and as we get going and the episodes keep coming, we're going to keep touching more and more. Somebody had made a suggestion for Car Wars. I think we may hit that next. I do read everything that you guys put in the comments, so I'm thinking of doing that soon. So I've got so many old games. I'm looking forward to going through them with you. I hope you enjoy this series. If you want, leave some comments, some things that maybe I can do to improve, or maybe you just want to say, hey, you did a pretty good job. Either way, I'll take your comments and your criticism. Again, thank you so much for watching and all your support, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.